My name is Tom Arnold. I was chair of the Constitutional Convention, which worked between 2012 and 2014, and which is really a forerunner to the current Citizens' Assembly. The purpose of this session is to provide citizens with the personal experiences and stories of people affected by gender inequality at work, low pay, the gender pay gap, and/or occupational segregation. I'll be introducing three remarkable women. Each have faced many challenges in their lives, and it's drawing on that life experience they will speak today about what they would recommend as to what could be done in Ireland to improve their situation. So the speakers are, firstly, Avril Hannifin. Avril will be speaking about her experience as a working lone parent. She works as in support and moderator for Cosán. Secondly, Suzy Byrne. Suzy has been involved in community work and campaigning on disability and equality issues for 30 years. She works as a manager for the National Advocacy Services for people with disabilities. And thirdly, Mariaam Bhatti, who's an experienced campaigner, community work and social policy practitioner, and a migrant woman living in Ireland for 10 years, and co-founder of the Great Care Co-op. So it's a great pleasure to start by introducing and asking Avril Hannifin to speak. Avril.
Hi, I'm Avril. I'm a working single parent and I've been working since I'm 16. And when I was pregnant at 18, I continued working full time also. I've had a few different roles in the last few years. I've had internships, CE schemes, and apprenticeship as well. I've had to start from the bottom and work my way up and persevered with grit and integrity all through. I've had precarious work situations part-time, and in 2009 my contract was cut in retail from 4 hours or from 15 hours to 4 hours, which made my situation untenable. I retrained in education and ended up working my way up in the community development sector. I did my degree also, and throughout this time I was working part-time, and the government had cut single parents that were working part-time and their funding. So it was very, very hard for me to balance work, childcare and my degree, plus the volunteering I did in the community. And my daughter was transitioning into secondary school, so it was very, very hard, and I had to make a decision to leave work because it just wasn't worth it. I didn't have the time, I didn't have work-life balance, and it was just too stressful. I've done, as I said, internship schemes, and doing them I have learned a lot, and I've got valuable investment of people's time. But at the same time I've had to undervalue myself because I had to take cuts each time, because on these schemes, like, you are on a welfare rate, so you're undervalued. My apprenticeship was different. That was work, I was basis work, and it was full time. And in 2017 I transitioned to full-time employment in Cosán, and I loved it. And I negotiated a 35-hour contract because I wasn't able to do what the government wants me to do, which is like 39 plus hours, because it's just not feasible being a single parent and with a work-life balance with a child that needs to have activities and a good life as well. I'm doing what I can. I've always tried my best, and I always hoped that I'd work my way up. And I'm happy doing what I want now, and I'm supported, and there is flexibility in what I'm doing. But I have had very bad experiences and being treated not too good in the retail sector, and being, doing things that my education wasn't showing. Like, I had to do things out of survival, not because I wanted to do them. And my recommendations are for children to be a priority. There's a site that our children are our future leaders, And if we treat them with love, compassion, support, and kindness, and provide adequate services for them, then we will have a better society led by great people. And if we continue to underinvest in children, women, and men, families will then come up better, and all of our futures won't look as bleak with mental issues and conflict. I'm still trying to navigate the system, and I'm reminded of the trauma of the last recessions where finances decreased and nothing is promised. I still live with the mindset of never spending more than I earn, and I never ever want to be classed as a poor single parent again. In my experience, I assert that the most effective way to help gender equality for working women, mothers, and benefit men in the end to be happier, is to revolutionise childcare policies. There's lack of female representation, diversity, and subvented childcare, early education, and teen development schemes would benefit working parents, children, and childcare staff. This could be done through tax incentivization or benefits in kind. In the 21st century, innovative solutions are required if women are to be part of the workforce. I also think we need more flexible work hours, because during the pandemic we all have had to work from home, and when it suited the system and the government, we all did that without question, and we worked from home. So I don't see why we shouldn't have the choice to do that every now, have a balance. And also pay us what we are worth. Simple as, why am I worth less than a man doing my job, or why am I worth less than a man because I was born a woman and because I'm a mother? Like, it's not fair. It makes logical sense and economic sense, and it'll bring in more tax revenue if you pay us more. So thank you.
Avril, thank you very much indeed. Could I now go on directly to Susie?
Good morning, Tom. Thanks very much. My name is Suzy Byrne, and I'm a disabled woman living in Dublin. My personal history is, I'm 50 years old, but I've worked full time only since I was 35. And I suppose if you looked at my history before that, it was precarious work. It was not working at all because of my disability, because of my ill health, because of the lack of employment opportunities where it would take into account my needs as a disabled woman and as somebody who had particular needs around my medical condition, being able to be available to go for treatments. Also, I suppose dealing with issues addressing my mental health as well, which was badly affected at that time. I also had difficulties in education. I failed my leaving cert. There was not adequate support for me when I was at school, and it took until I was in my late 20s and able to have the supports that I needed, and that I went into Trinity as a mature student and was really well supported in Trinity, and undertook a degree in postgraduate work. In terms of work, it has been for me very difficult to keep employment, and also identify employment that looks at issues around access to transport, even my accommodation, and living in situations where I have personally experienced living in situations which were far from perfect, because I was so terrified of losing where I lived and being able to find somewhere that I could afford to pay for as somebody on low pay, but also that was accessible. I need to live in ground floor accommodation, or accommodation that has a reliable lift. I am living currently in rented accommodation that I'm terrified of losing. Um, because it does have access. It also, in terms of work, has me near to the workplace, near to meetings or wherever I need to attend. But I'm really very lucky, because actually over 70% of disabled women in Ireland don't have work. And in fact, that rate is higher than disabled men. If you're a disabled man, you're more likely to have a job than a disabled woman. And there's a cost to disability. I pay extra for transport, I pay extra for housing, I pay extra for medication. I don't have a medical card because I earn too much, and I'm lucky that I earn too much for that. But there is no recognition by the state that I have extra costs due to my disability. I can't get tax benefits or in recognition of the extra costs I have. I have to think about traveling, going to meetings, going out into the workplace. Everything, is put into thinking about things. I'm also afraid of getting sick. Many disabled people are afraid that they will have a worse illness record than their able-bodied cohort, and worry about that. Now, my employer is excellent. They're very supportive of me. I work in the area of disability, and I chose that because that's what I'm good at, but also that I know that my employer is supportive. It's not the same for everybody. Also, disability covers lots of impairment types. There are people with mental health difficulties, people with intellectual, sensory disabilities, people with physical disabilities. We need to put the reality into what a reasonable accommodation is, and in what our rights as disabled people in the workforce are, and to be supported, to ensure that our needs are met, and that we're not going around looking for people's goodwill all the time, that we actually have rights as individuals in the workforce, and whatever our accommodations may be they the lifts and the ramps and the physical things, but also the practical things that can make entering the workforce, keeping a job, being the same as everybody else a reality. Those things need to be tackled by the state, and not just seen as a privilege. Thanks very much.
Susie, thank you very much. Very powerful testimony indeed. Could I now move directly to Mariaam?
Good morning. My name is Mariaam Bhatti. I'm delighted to be here this morning. I am a community worker and a social policy practitioner, and I live in Ireland for the last 10 years. I'm also the co-founder of the Great Care Co-op, which is Ireland's first worker-led and worker-owned care co-op. So we founded the Great Care Co-op, myself and 9 other women, because of years of experience of working in low-paid sector as migrant women. I initially arrived in Ireland 10 years ago to work as a live-in full-time childminder and housekeeper for 2 medical professionals. And I arrived from South Africa with a 6 a.m. On a 6 a.m. flight, and I went straight to work. And from that, I realized that I was, this whole new world opened to me that I had not known before. A world of working in isolation, working very long hours, like 11 hours, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and being paid only 400 euros a month. And at that time, of course, as a new migrant, it wasn't a way that I was being exploited. It would take months before I met another migrant woman. And at that stage, I had also become undocumented and in a labor exploitation situation. So because of that, I met this other woman who brought me to the Migrant Rights Center Ireland. Then I joined a group of migrant women who were giving each other support, who were in terms of employment rights, in terms of just keeping going, because there are a lot of issues that affect migrant workers. And out of that, a group called the Domestic Workers Action Group was born. This group, at first, it was a support group, but later grew to a campaigning group that campaigned for the criminalization of forced labor in Ireland, campaigned for the UN Convention of Decent Work for Domestic Workers, which is the International Labour Organization Convention. We also campaigned for embassies to treat their staff, their domestic workers well. And recently, out of all that experience, years and years of seeing people work very long hours, working in isolation, we then decided that we need to set an example of what a good working place looks like. We need to set an example of what when workers are supported, what they can do, and there's so much leadership within us. So we decided that we would seek funding. We got funded by the European Social Fund, and it has taken us almost 3 years to set up the Great Care Co-op. But because we had so much experience of care within ourselves, care is a low-paid work, obviously, and there are very few opportunities to progress within it. So we wanted to see women's leadership skills being cultivated. We wanted to see, people getting decent work. We wanted to see people being able to plan their lives, people being able to start families and afford childcare, which is a big issue in Ireland, as you know. So when it comes to the recommendations, we think that it's important to cultivate leadership by funding social enterprises like ours. So upskilling is possible. So migrant women can at least move up the ladder, because there is evidence that they stay in low paid work for too long. We would like to see regularization of care workers that are undocumented. We also would like to see people being able to get other services such as subsidized childcare and related services that allow them progression.
I want to thank Avril, Suzy, and Mariaam. These were powerful and eloquent testimonies based on your own life experience. And I suppose what now is the challenge for the citizen members is to absorb those, interpret them, and see are there practical things that could be done, that government could do to improve the situation for people like yourselves and the many other people who share some of your interests and some of your situations. So it's over to the citizens. I really want to thank all of you, Avril, Suzy, and Mariaam, for very, very important testimony this morning. Thank you.